Now we have Ms. Mishaal Ashemimry, the President and CEO of Mishaal Aerospace. The aerospace company she founded focused on launch vehicle and rocket development for space applications. Since 2010, her company has been designing, manufacturing, and launching its own line of launch vehicles for clients from government, research, commercial aerospace, and telecommunication industries. Ms. Ashemimry earned a bachelor's degrees in aerospace engineering and applied mathematics, and then her master's of science in aerospace engineering, all from the Florida Institute of Technology. Today, she will discuss the technologies disrupting the aerospace industry and her involvement with engineering, business, and space exploration. Please help me in welcoming Ms. Mishaal Ashemimry to the stage.
Thank you. So it's a hard act to follow, I must say. So today I'm here, and a lot of you, some of you are students, some of you are professionals. You're going to be listening to me, and you're going to ask yourself, who's this person? Why should I listen to her? And today, in the same thing that you mentioned, it's a story that I'm going to share with you through my journey to get me here today. So to start, obviously, everything has groundwork. This is me when I was a child. So I was born in the States, and that age, my mom decided to take me to, my parents are from Saudi Arabia, both of them, and specifically Ineza, if some of you know Ineza. So my mom decided to take me to the desert, or Nafud in Ineza, at night. And I was 6. I went there, it was kind of chilly, because it gets chilly at night. And it was super quiet. The only thing you can hear is the moaning of camels in the distance. And there's zero light except the light you see from the stars. And I looked up in the sky and I saw a ginormous density of stars. And I was in awe. Like I couldn't take my eyes off of it. And I kept asking my mom, my sister, "Mom, what is this? Why does it flicker? Why is it so dense in this area and not this area? Why does this flicker more than the other?" And I kept asking so many questions, and they're like trying to explain it to me, but I was not very satisfied with their answers. So I kept asking so many questions. I was so curious. I was so mesmerized by these stars. So then I continued to ask questions, and then one day my sister Sarah, who is a year and 3 months older than I am, told me, "Listen, I'm so sick of you and these questions. I have the right solution for you. Here's how God created these stars." She got a piece of paper, put some glue on it, got some glitter, threw it on, and said, "Look, it looks the same, right?" I said, "Yeah, actually it does." She said, "This is exactly what God did. Now can you please be quiet about these questions?" And I was like, "Thanks, but no." So I decided from that moment on that my curiosity must be fed. And in order to feed that curiosity, I need to go into space. And in order to go into space, you need to make the rockets to take you there. So from that day, it became my mission and my life's journey to create rockets to take me to space, to explore it. To do that, obviously you need to go to school. And I majored in aerospace engineering and applied mathematics for my bachelor's. You take so much math in aerospace that you might as well get another degree in math. So I figured I'd get 2 degrees. And then in my master's, I obviously did, you guessed it, aerospace engineering. There, I had the fortune of having NASA Marshall Space Flight Center pay for my tuition and a stipend because I was working on a nuclear thermal rocket for Mars missions. So these are not rockets that kill people, these are rockets that would take you to Mars. So to give you an idea, if you use a chemical rocket, when you have the shortest trajectory between Earth and Mars, it would take you approximately 16 to 18 months to get to Mars. But when you use a nuclear rocket at the shortest trajectory between Earth and Mars, you could do that in 6 to 8 months. So it's a very impressive technology and high performance. So that was the thesis and the subject matter of my research. So following that, and before I get into my journey into the professional field, I wanted to give you a little background on the aerospace arena and a brief history, if you would like, of the space market. So, actually, let me go back because I don't want you guys to cheat. Who knows why the space race started? Who can give me the answer?
War.
Correct, the Cold War. So the Cold War created this hunger and this competition between the United States and Russia to achieve things in space. So now you can cheat. So in the 1940s, it caused the creation of the Mercury, then the Apollo, and so forth. What happened is Russia launched the first satellite. The US said, what? No way, we can't have that. So therefore, the US was like, we gotta beat them. And then guess what? The Russians were like, we're gonna put a man in orbit. They were the first country to put a man in orbit. The US was like, what? Forget this, we're going to the moon, that's it. So it became the mentality, and for space at the time, I must achieve whatever the cost is. So no matter how much it's gonna cost me, I am going to achieve this because I gotta beat the Russians. They tried, they failed, they tried, they failed, and then they tried, and they succeeded. And the US was the first country to land a human on the moon. And then not once, because some people think that we only landed once, we actually landed 6 times. So the bottom line is, the Russians did achieve great things in space, but it was that competition that had this fire to cause the advancement of aerospace. But the idea here I want to stress is I must achieve no matter what the cost is. And that became what I call old space. What has happened since then, there has been a huge shift in the mentality in the aerospace market. So you've heard of the space shuttle program and the problems that we had. Basically in 2003, a lot of you probably were here, maybe during the Columbia accident. That started to put up a lot of questions as it comes to the space industry. It's very costly, it's too expensive to maintain, especially if you want to have reusable vehicles, because the regime when you come back in is too excessive for it to sustain it. So you have that issue, along with the fact that now they're circulating this idea, it's too expensive, we can't have people dying. Okay, granted, the space shuttle program didn't have that many casualties. I mean, there was only 2 mainly that were catastrophic. The idea was there has to be a way to make this more cost-effective and better. And it's always it's always towards like government-related, or the government has to sponsor it. So now the mentality has shifted. Well, guess what? I have brilliant people. Now you have the introduction of entrepreneurship in space. A lot of wealthy individuals or entrepreneurs are saying, you know what? We can do this better. We can do this a lot cheaper, and we can achieve greater things than what it was before. So at old space, we need to achieve because we have this competition. New space, I can do it better. I can do more stuff. Not only do I want to make it cheaper and cost-effective, I want to make it accessible. The important element is I want to make it accessible. I want to achieve things that are super wild, from space tourism, mining asteroids, bringing back samples from other planets, colonizing different planets. These are very ambitious goals. And now you have entrepreneurs that say, you know what? I don't need government. I will do this on my own. I will achieve it, then the government can give me money to do stuff for them as a side business. So you have the introduction of companies like SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, Blue Origins and the like, and Mishaal Aerospace. So that kind of is the difference. So just to recap, old space focuses on achieving regardless of the cost. There was lack of competition because basically there weren't many companies that you can compete with. And because you achieve it no matter what the cost is, the prices are very high. And then you have the new space, the focus on achieving more with an eye on cost. You have reduced prices. It embraces entrepreneurship, and it creates competition and grand objectives that supersede any previously thought achievements in space. With that, why did I get into aerospace entrepreneurship? So after I finished my master's, as I mentioned, I worked for Raytheon for some time. And while there, I worked on 22 different rockets, which was pretty cool because I was in a program called Advanced Programs, which means it's very high-paced, and I was lucky enough to be on multiple different programs, not just one for the rest of my life. So I was exposed to different types of rockets, which was pretty awesome. I worked, I enjoyed it, I loved it because rockets is in my blood. And I felt, though, that I was working so hard, but not like I didn't feel like I'm reaping the fruits of my labor. So I decided, you know what? And at the time, the market was kind of like shaky because of the recession hitting the aerospace industry around 2010, and there was some issues. So I decided, you know what? It's time. It's time for me to leave this industry and to be able to reap the fruits of my labor. And as you mentioned, when it comes to women in fields that are highly dominated by men, when I had some stories while there where I had to work 4 times as hard as a man to be able to be recognized, regardless. So my merits were there, but in order for you to be recognized, because you are the minority in the group, you have to work 4 times as hard. And I'll give you an actual story that happened to me. There was a program that I was working on in which a gentleman came to me for help because I wrote this code that's kind of generic and you can play with it very quickly and get results immediately. And so he asked my help on his program. So I started to help him. So literally, I was at work at 6 a.m. and I wouldn't leave until 1 a.m. the next day because I was finishing my work and then I was helping this guy on his work. So I started working and working, and eventually they took him off the project and put me on the project. And then you'd think, oh, that's a good sign. Then in the end, who gets recognized for the work? Guess. No? He got recognized for the work. That I basically worked forever, and he gets recognized. So normally you would think like, oh, that hurts my feelings, and screw this, I'm not doing this anymore. But I thought, you know what? Recognize him, I don't care. My merits are there. When you try to go to him again, good luck trying to have him do my work. So I don't need him. So you must develop thick skin. Because you are a minority, and because you like, literally, I was, in my group there were 60 people, 10% were women. So just to give you an idea. So you just have to fight, that's it. And develop thick skin and move forward. So in any case, I figured, you know what, it's time for me to start my business. After several explorations of the market, the aerospace market at the time, I had the chance of speaking to, who became my chief engineer later, Rick Lohr, towards the end of 2010, and I said, he knows that I love rockets, he loves rockets, he's a lot older than I am, he's more experienced than I am, and as Mr. Juma said, you must surround yourself with people that have more experience than you and that are more intelligent than you and so forth. I started to have a conversation with Rick about the market. We realized there's a huge gap in the small satellite market. We realized that the aerospace market, all the rockets that exist today have very heavy payload capability, which means if you're a small satellite, you have to become a tertiary or a secondary payload. Therefore, you don't have a say as to when you launch, how you launch, or where you launch to. So we figured, you know what, and it's a growing segment of the market because technology has been miniaturizing. Therefore, in one CubeSat, I can do a lot more than big satellites from 25 years ago. And then the beauty of small satellites is I can launch them in a constellation in different locations and be able to have a maximum coverage. So I figured, that's it. This is the business I need to get into. So with that, we started Mishaal Aerospace. So to give you a little idea of what our objective is, do I press a button here, or do you guys press a button?
Oh,
I press.
Yeah.
So this will give you a little brief.
My name is Mishaal Ashemimry. My background is in aerospace engineering. I got my degree from Florida Institute of Technology, and my specialty is in rocket design. I've always known that I wanted to be an aerospace engineer since I was 6 years old when I was gazing at the stars and wondering what they were. If I wanted to understand them, I need to go into space. And in order for me to go into space, I need to develop the rockets that take me there. The mission of Mishaal Aerospace is to develop low-cost rockets for space access, including orbital and lunar missions. Our vision is to allow smaller satellites to have access to space and allow the general public to have a cost-effective means to go into space. The technology has been advanced and technology is becoming miniaturized, so there's a lot more satellites that are getting smaller and smaller, but yet have no way of accessing space. A lot of the rockets that exist today are targeted for larger satellites and larger payloads. So there's a huge gap in that market. And that's how we decided to try to cater to that market, because they're growing, and the main problem that they're having is they don't have a cost-effective way of access to space. We have 2 locations. The headquarters is in Miami, Florida, which is where we do the design simulation. And we have the Arizona office, which contains the integration, testing, and putting hardware together. So Mishaal Aerospace is developing the following rocket line. It's called the M rocket. Our first rocket is the MSV, which is this one. It's a hybrid rocket booster, and it's intended for a microgravity environment, meaning it just goes into space and then comes back down. This MSV, which uses the hybrid rocket, is used as a booster in the MOV. So this is the MOV, which is the orbital vehicle. Its intention is to put a satellite into orbit. We have the last line here is the MLV, which is the lunar vehicle. A successor of this would be the MHLV, which is the heavy lifting vehicle. That rocket will be able to go to the moon and bring back samples to Earth. So in addition to our M rocket line, we also provide the launch service. We have our own launch facility. We launch our own rockets. What we're doing at Mishaal Aerospace is game changing. We're providing an underserved market with access to space. In addition, we will be the first company to access the moon. By doing so, we will allow the scientific community to have access to lunar resources that will improve mankind in developing more research in fusion engines and using alternative sources that are available to the moon. From this research, we will be able to solve energy problems as well as other things that are unknown to us today.
I'm going to skip that way. I repeat my name, so it's irrelevant. So the idea is we offer cost-effective rockets to satellite companies, and we provide a dedicated service to go, so they can say when they launch, how they launch, or where they launch to. How do we make money? Let's say you guys have a satellite. You come to me and you're like, hey, Mishaal, I have a satellite. Can you put it into space, low Earth orbit, or whatever? I integrate your satellite, and then I transport it to our launch facility, and I launch the rocket. You pay me for that service. So to give you an idea of what type of payloads we can carry, a 1 liter bottle of water is about 1 kilogram. That is about the size of, or the weight of a CubeSat. So from that, all the way up to the weight of a grizzly bear. Not the volume of a grizzly bear, but the weight of a grizzly bear, which is 500 kilograms. So, and as I mentioned in the video, we have a bunch of rockets that happen in succession, and some of them we do in parallel. So the suborbital vehicle, or the SV, is the booster for the OV. So every development of a rocket feeds into the next one. And the idea is the cash cow is the OV, which is the orbital rocket which puts satellites into orbit. And then eventually I would like to go to the moon and bring back samples to Earth. That way we can use the resources. So naturally, nothing comes easy. And there are 2 types of struggles that I'm going to discuss today. And I have to discuss them one and then the other, but keep in mind these happen simultaneously, because you don't get to choose how these happen. So the first one I would like to discuss, which is the one I hate the most, is the financial difficulties. But keep in mind this is happening as the technical difficulties are happening. So one of the key problems in my field is that a lot of investors, VCs and so forth, are too scared to put money in aerospace. Even if they do cater to the aerospace market, they already put their money in another launch vehicle provider, and therefore they don't want to put the same investment in another launch vehicle provider. And then the rest, the ones that don't understand aerospace, are too scared. They're like, hey, I'd rather put my money in a building where I know I can sell it to humans. So for 2 years, initially I had an investor that was fully vested for the whole project, and ensured, we had several conversations, and ensured to me that money is not an issue, and that 14 times he said it, and I can count each one. Don't worry about the money, that is my problem. I will fund you throughout the whole project. I said, okay, great, I'm good. I have a ticket all the way. Well, guess what? That doesn't happen. Nothing happens as planned. So then when it became obvious to me that he cannot fund the whole project, for 2.5 years I looked for investors everywhere. I spoke to 100 different types of investors. You name it, here, there, anywhere in the world. I went anywhere to try to look for money for the business. And unfortunately, for 2.5 years, I was unable to find an investor. The key problems were, I don't understand aerospace, it's too risky. Two, I do understand aerospace, but I already put money in another launch vehicle company, therefore I can't put all my money in the same type of business. And lastly, they say, oh great, work, keep at it, see you later. I'm like, okay, thanks. So at the same time this is all happening, we are also experiencing some technical difficulties. One of the first technical difficulties we experienced is in the fuel mixing. Because we do everything from scratch. Okay, so we developed this hybrid rocket from scratch, so it has our own proprietary formulation that we mix actually in our facility. We had some issue with vacuum, keeping it a vacuum, which is not a big deal, we fixed it, it's no big deal. The combustion chamber was one that stressed me out a lot because I was running out of money, but I needed to achieve at least one milestone. So this is where I impart some of the struggles with you. Sometimes you start off, you have these brilliant ideas and brilliant plans of what you want to do, and then you get slapped by reality, and it tells you, guess what, you're going to need to take bite sizes out of your dream, and you need to be satisfied with that. And that's an emotional struggle and a psychological struggle, and you need to maintain your composure because, especially if you're a leader of a company, you need to maintain that composure to the rest of the people in your company. So I wanted to go to the moon, I wanted to create this big company that makes billions of dollars a year and so forth. And then I was faced with, guess what? Now I'm in a position where I'm saying, I want to achieve one tiny milestone before I shut down. So the goal was, I need to at least achieve the static test of my hybrid rocket to show that we are not crazy, we actually have a rocket that works. So the combustion chamber failed not one time, not 2 times, but 3 times. Keep in mind, I'm running out of money, I'm running out of time. So I had to push so hard. And we decided to make some changes. Finally, the 4th time it worked. I was like, all right, let's put this thing together. Let's go to the Mojave Desert, let's do this. Okay, great. You think everything's gonna go smoothly? Nope. So you get to the Mojave Desert to test this hybrid rocket. We put everything together. The day we're supposed to test, the valve doesn't work. Luckily, the testing facility was free the next day. So we're like, hey, we're gonna take that tomorrow. And they're like, okay, cool. So we went to a hardware store to find another valve that we can replace, which we did. Okay. Then you think, hey, great, I'm done. Now it's gonna be ready. Nope. Now we have to pressurize the oxidizer tank to be able to do the test. We tried, doesn't work. We can't pressurize it, we can't pressurize it. 2 hours we tried, and it wouldn't pressurize. Mind you, I'm like at the last point of my life. And so, my chief engineer, Rick Lord, comes to me, he's like, Mishaal, we've been trying for 2 hours, what do you want to do? I told him, look, it's do or die. So either I die, or we do this. However long it takes, we must do this. So with that, I will let you watch this video. Clearly, we succeeded at the end, after struggling so much. But before we even got to this point, I want to make sure that you understand, because when you're a leader of a company or trying to lead a team into something, this test was done in August, right? In March of 2014, I realized, after 2.5 years of trying to find funding, that I'm struggling. So I made sure I got the whole team together, and I said, look guys, as you know, I've been looking for funding for 2.5 years. Today, March, I am telling you, as of today, I have no leads. I'm trying my best, but I have no leads. And you need to understand that the only money I have left is until the end of August, which is when we plan to do our static test, hopefully, if all the technical stuff get ironed out. You have a decision today to make for yourself, and I will not fault you for it. I said to each one of them, if you want to leave, because I cannot pay you beyond August, or you can stay with me and try to do the static test. It was very emotional for me, and I had to be like so composed and everything, and pretend like I'm not dying on the inside. But each one of them said to me, we will stay with you knowing that the only money you have left is to pay us until August. We're willing to do that because we want to see at least this one milestone be achieved. And this was important. And so, as any person that's in a position of leadership, you need to make that decision for yourself, to be very clear with the people around you, because their lives are impacted by this. So as you can see, I mean, we had letters of intent in terms of achievement. I don't want to keep repeating myself here. Combustion chamber worked. We were successful at doing the static test, and we did receive letters of intent from potential clients, signed, saying, hey, Mishaal, when you're ready, we are ready to launch with you and pay for the service. So just to give you some images of our success, our rocket full up right here, we mix and cure our stuff, static test. So why is this important to you? My journey has been very difficult. And I think one of the most important things is it's better to try and fail than not to try at all. When I started, people thought, hey, you're 26 years old starting a rocket company, you're nuts. And I said, exactly. Because I'm crazy, I'm so gonna try. Because at least I try, I will learn. But at least I can say, try. If I don't try, I wouldn't know. So that's something that each one of you has to do in your own life. So sometimes you may start something, but it's just not the right time for it. In my case, I started something, I was very ambitious. I think I will always be that sort of person. But just realize maybe it's not just the right time for it. Don't let that put you down. Make that fuel you to push forward. And then focus, this may seem like a cliche, but focus on your dream no matter what the obstacles are. And believe it will happen, it will happen. I faced a lot of obstacles. When the combustion chamber failed, I could have been like, oh, forget it, I can't do this. I was running out of money. I had so much stuff to do, but I didn't. I was like, you know what, I will make it bite-sized. And if I can achieve that, I'm satisfied. And then last, or I think it's the last point, the most important thing that you must take from me today, in my opinion, failure is the seed from which success grows. So do not be afraid to fail, because that's how you're going to learn how not to do it. And thank you so much.